Gauranga Nityananda Gauranga Nityananda. We're just getting ready to broadcast. Hold on. I've been negligent of my duty here. Yes. Give me a second. Okay. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. No. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. I think you can hear. No, I have to turn my recorder off and turn it on again. It's got a peculiar recorder. I just put the data card in while the recorder is on and it doesn't do anything. And I have to turn off my internet. I'm in the middle of doing a retreat, and every free moment I have is precious. So I was just doing something else before we started. So on Mondays we've been talking on the topic of dissatisfaction. I had many classes, and I wanted to tie in the present economic situation of the world with this topic, and because we started this class long ago, I can't remember if we talked about it, but I think in order to understand the nature of dissatisfaction, not just only philosophically, but understanding how it works practically in today's world, and why it's so insidious and so pervasive, we have to understand something about the economic system. And now, I didn't study economics, but I don't think it's rocket science, and I've read enough to discuss some basic foundations. So, our economy can only function and thrive if people buy things they don't really need. And it's just like, for example, clothes. We all have enough clothes, but we'll buy more clothes not because we need them or the old clothes wear out, although that happens sometimes, but because they're not in style. Or we'll buy a product because it's newer and better than the old product, although the old product is sufficient. But because the new one is slightly better and we have the money, we'll buy it. And as you probably know, a lot of products are designed not to last. So that will also cause people to buy more products who don't need to buy more products, who know they don't need and who wouldn't buy them if their other products worked. And then you have the situation of operating systems change, and then old software doesn't work on new operating systems, and certain old phones don't operate on the new 4G networks, and so you're forced to purchase newer products even if you don't want, or you really didn't need them. You don't need any of the functions of the new products, but you buy them anyway because you don't really have a choice, because your old software is not working on the new system. And you might say, well, why didn't you keep the old system? No, because you needed the new software. But the new software isn't working on your old system. You actually needed it. So then you have to buy a new system, which means a new computer or a new phone, like that. So our economy, for it to flourish, I mean, this is a simplistic idea, but there's more to it than this. But foundationally, for our economy to flourish, there has to be a sufficient level of greed within the hearts of people. There has to be a desire or a need to purchase more than is required. And we've discussed this, that actually all you really need, I mean, you could live the rest of your life with what you could fit in a suitcase and a carry-on, because I do that. And sometimes I go 4 months at a time, and everything I need, there's nothing really I need. When I get back, it's not that I really have anything there that I need. It might be a few things for my service, but I have summer clothes, I have winter clothes, I have what I need. There's no extravagance. So factually, all we need is what we would pack for a 3-week vacation is actually all we need for the rest of our life. But if everybody lived that way, the economy would crash, because there would be no money, wouldn't be circulating, because no one would be spending money, because people would just utilize what they had. If people Prabhupada once said, one devotee was complaining about the price of food, and he said, it's your fault because you're not growing food. If you grow food, the price will go down. So, if we're growing our food, things will be less expensive. Our needs will be minimized like that. So how is this relevant to the topic of dissatisfaction? Well, in order for the economy to flourish, marketing has to instill some level of dissatisfaction with the current status quo, that you could be happier or better off if you have the product that we're offering you, and kind of make you feel in some way incomplete without it, or some kind of suffering is going to go on in your life that could be eliminated if you had this product. If you don't have it, then you won't be able to do certain things. Life will be more inconvenient, like that. Or it's just a prestige thing. If you have this watch, then you'll be respected more. People will think more highly of you because it's a name brand watch. Although the Casio, $10 Casio tells the same time as accurately as the $10,000 Rolex. But, nobody needs a $10,000 Rolex, but if you can afford it, it creates an image. And if you want an image, that'll get you an image. So you see, a lot of the marketing is all image-oriented, so it shows people wearing certain products with the hope that there's a niche audience that would identify with these people, and therefore kind of feel like, if I have that product, then I am like that person that's in the ad, or like that celebrity who's wearing that product. So the unfortunate reality is that we've got our economy in a situation, and this situation was consciously devised and developed, and it was knowingly done, insidiously done. And for our economy to survive and thrive, if there's no greed, it's gonna fall on its face. That's an unfortunate reality. So we've got this system set up that for it to work, we have to instill greed in the hearts of people. We have to make people feel that if they don't have more, they won't be satisfied. That's unfortunate. So in order to market products, there's chaos going on outside. It's hard to concentrate. I don't know if those are devotees or non-devotees. So, you look at modern society and you see that most people are image is important, the label is important. And, keeping up with the Jones, keeping up with your neighbors is important, and playing the part and being cool, and it's just so deeply programmed into everyone, because the economy cannot exist if that doesn't happen. Hold on a second. Let me see if those are devotees or what. Don't go anywhere. Those are not devotees. In this country, when people talk, they sound like they're arguing. Because I don't understand the language, and I can't tell you where I am. That's just, I'm somewhere where people talk, most of you know where I am, but the way they talk is like they're yelling and fighting, and they're just actually having fun, but they talk very loud. So I wanted to read some things from Bhagavatam on this topic. I thought it would be interesting. This is from the 8th canto, 19th chapter, verse 24 and 25, and I think this is Vamanadev. One should be satisfied with whatever he achieves by his previous destiny, for discontent can never bring happiness. A person who is not, in other words, it's amazing. It is amazing how much we fight our own karma. I mean, I get so many letters from devotees of the injustices that happen to them. This happened, and that happened, and this happened, and that happened. It's just horrible things happening, over and over again. And sometimes when I read it, of course I'm not involved emotionally. When I read it, it just seems so obvious that circumstances have created these unfortunate situations. And it's a karmic thing. It's hard to see if it's happening to you. But reading it, it just reads kind of like a story. One thing led to another, to another. And the letters I get often are people complaining about what happened. And I often think, well, why isn't it that they see it as their karma? They're not seeing it as their karma. And you're seeing it as a bunch of unfortunate circumstances and of people who are creating these unfortunate circumstances. So that's what this verse is saying. Be satisfied with whatever you achieve. So, of course, this verse is talking about what you get, not unfortunate situations. But it's the same idea. And if you're not content with what you have or not accepting what's going on, then you can't be happy. For discontent can never bring happiness. A person who is not self-controlled will not be happy, even with possessing the entire world. So, if you're in a certain state of consciousness, it really doesn't matter what you have. There's no amount that's going to satisfy you. It's not like you hit a certain point and you're satisfied. There is no point. Material existence causes discontent in regard to fulfilling one's lusty desires and achieving more and more money. This is the cause for the continuation of material life, which is full of repeated birth and death. But one who is satisfied by that which is obtained by destiny is fit for liberation from material existence. So, Prabhupada has come to the Western world to liberate people from birth and death. And here, this verse in Bhagavatam is saying that greed is the cause of continuation of material life. And greed is the foundational principle that drives this economy. And you can study this if you wish, but you will see that there are many meetings within Congress or Parliament, British Parliament, U.S. Congress. I don't know exactly when, maybe around the turn of the century, that time, where the best economists were frankly admitting that we have to incite greed within the hearts of people. That is what is going to save the economy and fuel the economy in the future. That is the need of the hour. And so, diametrically opposed to what Prabhupada is preaching. But the significant point here is that Prabhupada is saying that very thing is what causes material existence. So that's why it's so insidious, because that which drives the economy also drives repeated birth and death. And as we know, Prabhupada preached simple living. So, I was thinking this morning, it's like, when you have chemotherapy or radiation, it kills the cancer, but it also can cause cancer. So, it's like a system. You like, if there's no alternative, if you've tried everything and nothing works, and you go that route, it's not a perfect system. So the economic system is like that. It's like you have to inject a disease to keep the economy healthy. You have to inject the disease of lust to keep the economy healthy. And it's so bad that often people feel like failures if they're not wealthy. If they don't have what other people have, they feel that their self-esteem is debilitated just because they don't have all the external trappings. So that's unfortunate. So one who is satisfied by that which is obtained by destiny is fit for liberation from material existence. So here's another verse, and unfortunately I didn't note where it's from. But it describes the pain of accumulating money, at least more money than required. Generally, the wealth of misers never allows them any happiness. In this life, it causes their self-torment. And when they die, it sends them to hell. In the earning, attainment, increase, protection, expense, loss, and enjoyment of wealth, all men experience great labor, fear, anxiety, and delusion. Wow. That gives making a lot of money a bad rap, doesn't it? That's why devotees don't have a lot of money. We have bad money blueprints. We look at money, what's bad. Well, money's not bad, but if you dedicate your life to making money and you become obsessed, that's a problem. And it's interesting that this verse says that in getting the money, increasing it, protecting it, spending it, trying to enjoy it, what's the result? You experience labor, fear, anxiety, and delusion. Wow. It's amazing. It's the most, so amazing that some things are so clear and obvious. And Maya, she just covers people so well that they just don't see it. And when you read Prabhupada's books, it's the world as it is. I mean, you could, sometimes we would distribute Bhagavad Gita as it is, and we would tell the people, that's what this book is called. It's actually called As It Is. It's telling you as it is. And that's what Prabhupada's doing. And often for us, it's so obvious, and it seems strange that people can't see it because it's so clear. But they don't have Prabhupada's books. They don't have a guru. So even though it's obvious, they don't see it because Maya won't let them see it. Okay, here's a verse from the 11th canto, 23rd chapter, verse 16 through 19. Theft, violence, speaking lies. Okay, I'll have to preface this verse. These are there are 15 bad qualities that develop in a person, or contaminate a person who is greedy for wealth. And these are the 15 bad qualities, or 15 what the verse says, undesirable qualities. Theft, violence, speaking lies, duplicity, lust, anger, perplexity, pride, quarreling, enmity, faithlessness, envy, and the dangers caused by women, gambling and intoxication. Faithlessness, envy, and the dangers caused by women, gambling and intoxication are the 15 undesirable qualities that contaminate men because of greed for wealth. Although these qualities are undesirable, men falsely ascribe value to them. One desiring to achieve the real benefit of life should therefore remain aloof from the undesirable accumulation of material wealth. So, clearly the Bhagavatam is going against the grain of modern society. And the unfortunate reality is that if you don't understand this and don't make an effort to live simply, then it's very easy to become contaminated by greed, because it's actually being programmed into us. And so dissatisfaction, in a sense, is being programmed into us, because dissatisfaction fuels the economy. That's just the way it is. If people are satisfied, the economy will crash very quickly. Because if people are satisfied, they won't shop. And if people stop shopping, economy starts to go into recession and unemployment rises, because people are buying less, stores are selling less, sometimes some of their franchises go out of business, they have to close some, entire chains end up closing. And during the last recession, the last two recessions, many big chain stores in America went bankrupt and they totally closed. And for many other chains, they just closed many branches. Even Bank of America was closing branches, which is one of America's biggest banks. So that's what happens when when people stop buying. And so when there's a recession, and people become, even if they have money, they become conservative in their spending because they don't trust the future, or whether they'll lose their job or whether the stock market will go down. So they don't spend much money. Which means that during a recession, people are buying more what they need than what they want. So when people buy what they need, the economy starts to, the recession causes a downturn in the economy, and that downturn multiplies. And then when the economy is bad, people are just purchasing basic necessities. And this economy can't function with people purchasing necessities. It has to function. It can only function and thrive when people are buying what they don't need. That's it in a nutshell. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. Yes. So, the moral of the story is, if everyone chants Hare Krishna, the economy will completely collapse. I mean, if they chant good rounds. If they chant bad rounds, no, it won't collapse. But if they chant good rounds, they're going to be self-satisfied and they're not going to need much. And because they don't need much, they won't buy much. And because they don't buy much, the economy crashes. Yeah. So, that's the unfortunate reality. This verse from Bhagavatam, listing undesirable qualities that accumulate for those who are greedy for wealth. Bhagavatam says in other places that those who are too attracted by sex develop undesirable qualities. So it seems to be a theme here: lust and greed. Consequences, ramifications of lust and greed is that a person becomes degraded. Anyway, we have somewhere a list of quotes from Prabhupada that I compiled about dissatisfaction that we were reading way back whenever it was, last time we had classes. So I want to see if I can find that again, and we can read from it. Oh no, I don't see it. Now we're in trouble. we had a file called Dissatisfaction, once upon a time. Hold on, I'll look in another place. I'm terrible at organizing my... I have like 10,675 folders. I have so many folders, and it's been challenging to find everything, and these sometimes I just don't know where I put them. I've become amazingly qualified at hiding things from myself. All right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write in dissatisfaction. Sorry to hang you up here. Let's see what happens. Folder music. Hold on. Whoops. I just brought up the last class. I was trying to find out. You have to excuse me, I'm also not entirely awake right now. I don't know if I'm still jet-lagged or not. Dissatisfaction, I found it. I found where I hid it. Must be our lucky day. No, but it didn't come up. Oh my God, it's not our lucky day. Let's try that again. It's in the study file. Let's see, no. Sorry, I'm putting you through this. Let's try it once again. Microsoft Word document. Might be our lucky day. It may not be. Oh my God. It says we have the document, and it doesn't come up. Does that mean Krishna? Study dissatisfaction. It's supposed to be somewhere, and it's not. It says it's somewhere, and now it's not. Does that mean we're not supposed to read from it? Don't you love this? Modern technology? It's just amazing. All right. Well, I don't think we're supposed to read it. So we're going to read more about money. Okay? So here's some more about money. This is an article by Daneshwar. Okay, Shikarshan has a practical question. Good. I need some questions because I can't find the document I was going to read. Which is kind of scary, which means things are there must be spies on my computer because things are actually disappearing. I actually wrote something and it's not there. The devotee said, "You must have written it in a dream." I go, "No, I actually wrote it." And then I couldn't find it. Amazing. We as devotees are more or less part of modern world, and we are also buying stuff. Yes, so it means that we as a devotee should be more conscious and do shopping, less shopping, or only when it's necessary. Well, the interesting thing is, my sister would always tell me that when she stopped working and she was taking care of my father, so at a certain point she had no more money, he had to support her. He was very ill. And she didn't take care of him, he would just have to pay someone else. So she wanted to take care of him. And so, he'd give her money for what she needed, and then sometimes she'd say, I need money for this. And he'd say, why do you need that? And she said, I don't really need it, but I want it. Or he would say, do you need it or do you want it? So he was of a generation where they didn't waste money. So, sometimes it's not even a question of being a devotee or not. That's what's so interesting about the lives we live and becoming Krishna conscious, because some people aren't devotees, but they have more of the qualities or nature of devotees. So like my father he definitely had that quality of being thrifty and not spending money unnecessarily. And I probably am a bit cautious about spending money because of him, because that's how I grew up. He had money, but he didn't spend it unnecessarily. People who grow up in today's culture aren't exactly like that, but he grew up in the Depression, and the Depression was the worst economic time in the history of America. And he was a lawyer, and he said that he couldn't even run his business. No one had money for lawyers. They couldn't afford lawyers. There was no money. So he had that quality where he didn't spend money unnecessarily, and I think some devotees are the opposite. Even though they're devotees, they like to spend money. They like nice things. It's something that we're conditioned by. So the answer to the question is, in the perfect world of Krishna consciousness, yes, we would be living with what is necessary. Yes. But we wouldn't be living extravagantly. And my experience is that when you have a lot of money, you spend it. And when you don't, you don't. It's not a question of what you need or don't need. It's more a question of what you can afford. And it's kind of rare for people who have a lot of money not to spend a lot of money. It's kind of rare for people with a lot of money to live in a small house and have cars that are 10, 15 years old. You don't see it that often. If you do see it, it's because that's their principle. So I guess you could ask yourself the question, if you just inherited $10 million, how would your lifestyle change? What would you do? And you might think now you live simply, but maybe it's because you don't have a choice. But if you had 10 million, you'd have a choice. So how would you live? What would you do with the money? How would it affect your lifestyle? And I do find it very interesting because in our culture we're so conditioned to have and get and accumulate. So it's even hard for many devotees who have wealth to live in a somewhat extravagant way. It's just, But I think at some point, and many devotees feel strongly about this, we have to be exemplifying to the world what we teach. And of course many of us have to live in the city and we need a place to live and so forth. But if we live extravagantly, it doesn't set a good example. We're not even setting an example of what we believe. Now, there is some balance to it, because one time in Los Angeles, they're having some problem with the microphone. And I don't know what the problem was. And then Prabhupada stopped the class and he said, there's a saying, when you buy something, buy the best. So he was feeling that perhaps the problem with the microphone is that it was a budget microphone and it wasn't functioning properly. So I said, you should buy something that will last, buy something good. So If you have sufficient money, you can do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, there's everything right with that. And oftentimes myself, when I don't have enough money and I need to buy things, I'm looking at the cheaper model, and I always think it's a bad choice to buy the cheaper model because it's not going to last. Or, I need certain facility for service and I can't afford it. And I think, well, it would just be so much easier if we had sufficient money, then we could get the facility we need and buy the products we need. So, if you're using it for Krishna, buy the best. Don't skimp. But as far as our own lifestyle, we should keep it. We should keep it simple if we can, and it's not easy now. Hare Krishna. So that's a good question, and I don't want to talk too much about it because it's an individual decision devotees will have to make in terms of the lifestyle they want to live and what they think is right. But as we know, Prabhupada really pushed simple living, going back to the land, growing your own food. He talked a lot about it. He really pushed getting away from city life and working. He didn't feel that lifestyle was conducive to spiritual life. And so if we're not careful, we end up living that lifestyle, especially if you live in a city, it's so expensive. And it wasn't, you can engage in Krishna consciousness, you can live that lifestyle, but if we have a choice, it wouldn't be our first choice. And definitely it wasn't Prabhupada's choice. And my computer is going to die soon. Anyway, if it dies, I'll plug it in. So I don't want to sit up here and tell people what to do. But, it's an individual choice and that every one of us has to make. And I don't think we can ignore the many, many, many things Prabhupada said about simplifying, growing your own food and so forth. And, I don't know if you've ever had this thought, if you just won the lottery, all the things you would buy. But I think we all would have if we had money, what would you get? I think we all have a list. And I don't think everything that we would get would be actually necessary. And so that's just something to ask ourselves. We've talked about this topic before, that, what does it mean to be a devotee? And I think the Christians also discuss this. How do you distinguish a Christian from a non-Christian? How do you distinguish a Christian from an atheist? And the answer is, in many cases, you don't. They're doing the same thing. And it's a self-criticism within religious organizations when they look at members and saying, I don't see that our members are much different than the general non-believing public. So that's something to consider. Yeah. It's like 3 degrees out here, so our rooms are like walk-in coolers. Yeah, so that's why I look like this. And there are many, many devotees who, I don't know, many, but many devotees feel like, we have to be more exemplary in this regard, because if we're just like everybody else, then how do we get them to be Krishna conscious? Okay, Amrita Radhika. What about the debt you've accumulated before you became a devotee? Then you can't manage to pay it off because your life is now more simple and you don't have as much. Diseased, fire and debt, pay it off ASAP. That's Chanaka Pandit. It's our obligation. I mean, if you want to declare bankruptcy or consolidate your credit cards and pay a lower rate, no, there's no heat. It's amazing. In certain parts of the country, it gets freezing, but they don't have heat. It has to get below freezing before you find heat. Oh, and everybody knows how much I love cold weather. But it's blissful because we're doing austerity for Krishna, so I actually like it, even though it's cold. I like suffering for Krishna. I think he appreciates when we make sacrifice. So, yeah, you have to pay off your debt. As far as these kinds of things, when they came up to Prabhupada, his answer was, don't do anything that's not legal. So, if the government is offering some facility or there's some legal debt consolidation program, then you would consider that. But Prabhupada wouldn't recommend just not doing it, not paying it off per se. So in other words, because you're a devotee doesn't mean you just do whatever you feel like. So our philosophy is you want to live your life in a way that you can have a good foundation to be Krishna conscious. So whenever you're considering how you will maintain yourself, you want to look at how it's going to affect your Krishna consciousness. Just a warning, in 7 minutes I have to go, or 7 or 12 minutes, because it's 5:58 now p.m. here, and we're going to start at 6:15, our evening session. If I stay awake through it, we'll start it, yeah. So, when things were presented to Prabhupada about should we do this or should we do that, in terms of any kind of financial situation where the government might help, or we might have to renege on some loan or this or that, his general answer was, if it's legal, you can do it. If it's illegal, don't do it. If there are ways that you can, slowly pay off loans over time or get reduced percentages or whatever, then do that. So what does it mean to be simple? What does it mean to be extravagant? Well, sometimes Prabhupada would use this word, bare necessities, like, what do you, bare necessity means what do you need? What's the basics for what you need? Like, we built a house in America, and now we're renting a house in Mayapur. And the house in Mayapur is, I think, exactly half the size of the house in America. Because it's half the size, it also doesn't have a lot of storage room. In America, we have a whole, maybe a 10 by 20 shed for storage outside our house. And then we have closets inside. But in Mayapur, there's very little closet space. So as a result, obviously, with less space, we have to live with less. We can't be extravagant even if we want to, because there's no room to be extravagant. So my wife and I would sometimes remark that this place we're living in Mayapur is exactly half the size of where we live in America, and it's just sufficient. It's like barely sufficient. If it was 1 inch smaller, it would be too small. It's just like, it's right at the threshold of sufficient. And we don't have much storage space, but whatever we have, it's just barely sufficient. I have a hard time in my room just finding places for everything because I don't have much room for it. And so it's interesting that we're living in half the space, and I think we're probably living with about 25% of what we, or 50% of what we have in America. We don't have a lot in India. So I think being simple means you just have what you need. Extravagant means you have a lot of what you don't need. In studies that I've read, they say that people only wear 20% of the clothes they own. And in my personal experience, like, people like to buy me things, like to buy me clothes. And after a while, I have too much. And I just have a closet full of clothes and I'm not wearing everything. So when I get too much, personally, I don't know about you, but personally, I just feel like a little bit boggled and my brain's a little clogged, like I have too much. And when I get rid of it, it feels like I can breathe. It feels simpler, space. It's just easier to manage, easier to handle. Extravagance can also be working hard to get things that are difficult to achieve. So that's another definition Prabhupada has given. So, you might say, I have a lot, but it just comes to me. I'm not working for it. It's just people give it to me, or my uncle gives it to me, so, that's a little different. You're not going out to accumulate it. It's just coming to you. So that may be. I wouldn't call that extravagance. Or you inherited, you inherited a home and it's full of furniture and this and that. And if you can utilize it, it's no problem. Extravagance is just much more than you need. Now, the interesting thing about it is that everybody's needs are different. Just like, some people need to eat more. So that you could ask the question, well, what is a sufficient amount of food? I said, well, that'll depend on the person. So what's extravagant for one is not necessarily always extravagant for another. It depends on their service, it depends on their nature. Like that. So, but as far as possible, let's say you're preaching and you're an extravagant person and you're preaching to people, they may question. And it seems like your philosophy is preaching simplicity, but you don't have a very simple lifestyle. So what gives? What's going on? So you want to consider that. Again, it's hard for me to make any judgments about extravagance. I can only speak of it in a philosophical sense because it's up to the individual. I don't want to accuse anyone of being extravagant. That was a pretty ambiguous answer, wasn't it? That's the kind of answer you get when someone's giving class and they're like their mind is in the bed sleeping and they're trying to be awake giving class. You said that we should be satisfied with what is coming, natural way. So it means the devotees should not try to improve their own financial situation, in a sense, not being satisfied. Could mean that, or it could mean you try to improve and then you're satisfied with whatever comes. It could mean both. The point that Prabhupada has made is, let's say you're making this huge endeavor to improve your financial situation. It's taking a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy, and it's not getting any better, and it's cutting into your service, or cutting into your sadhana. That would be a problem. Well, let's say, you need to improve your financial situation, you're making an effort, things are working, you're maintaining good sadhana, so that's okay. I think the argument Prabhupada would also have is if you have enough and now you're working harder to get more than you need. A lot of devotees do that. And there's kind of maybe a fear of financial insecurity. I've seen that. Maybe sometimes they want to create a retirement fund, so they're working hard. That's a good reason to work hard. But don't work so hard that you compromise your spiritual life. That's a paradox. All right, I'm going to work really hard for 10 years, and in 10 years I'll retire in Vrindavan and I'll just do devotional service. That's smart. But don't work so hard that you have to compromise your sadhana now, so you'll get good sadhana in the future. That's not smart. That's not what Prabhupada would want. Right? You agree? It's not what he would want. Well, because everything everything evolves around how Krishna conscious a situation or a service or a work is making you or not making you. That's the important point. So, you could work very, very hard and have very little, but because you're working very hard, it's taking all your time. You have little time for devotional service. So that's still bad. And maybe you don't work so hard and you make a lot of money. I mean, really what's most intelligent is you're always assessing your actions and activities by what makes you Krishna conscious. Is this going to help my Krishna consciousness, or is it going to hurt my Krishna consciousness? Now, sometimes, if you're really hungry, you have to eat a lot, because if you don't eat a lot, you're still going to be hungry when you finish. So some people just have, by nature, they have stronger material desires, so they need more to fulfill them. But the idea of fulfilling the material desires is so you can be peaceful, so you can do devotional service. It's not just an ends in and of itself, that I just have to fulfill my material desire. No, you fulfill it so you can be peaceful, just like you fill your stomach with food and you're no longer hungry, now you can peacefully do devotional service. So what's required to fill your stomach may be different than what's required to fill my stomach, but the goal is to fill our stomachs. So some people will need more, some will need less. But the principle is this going to help me or is this going to hurt me? So, maybe I have various desires and I need certain things to fulfill those desires so that I can be peaceful, so I can do devotional service. So that's fine. If that's your mentality, and then you go out and you get a nice house, this and that, now you're satisfied, so now you can focus on devotional service. That's okay. Now someone might say, well, it'd be better you didn't need all that, and that's true, but if you do need it, you'll have to deal with it. Right? So, ladies and gentlemen, we have to stop early because we're in the middle of a workshop and I have to go now. Is that all right? Do I have your blessings to leave? And I don't know where I'm going to be next Saturday, if I'm going to be free. Anyway, we'll keep you posted. I have to find out. I'm doing 3 retreats while I'm here. And I don't know exactly the exact schedule. But I'm very busy. But it's good. We're having a good time here. It's about 30 devotees, and we're here for 5 days. So we're going to chant 64 rounds on Wednesday. Okay, so I'm going to go now. Sorry to all of you who just tuned in, but I have to leave. And Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.